You got to be yourself because everybody else is fool.
That's why it's crazy we chose the name Klippah Talk.
Then going to the barbershop, sitting around.
I was saying, I ain't that. It's a nice little reminder.
If it bleeds, it leads. 100%.
Right. Like, hey, they want to say what they want to say, but we gonna let these Clippers talk.
I think that's it.
All right. Welcome to another edition of Klippah Talk. Today, we're gonna talk about a subject that's very important in our community, but most times is overlooked. And when I say overlooked, we've gotten so far off in the entertainment that where we've forgotten about education. So I want to kind of reintroduce the concept of education and how important it is to read and get an understanding of everything you involve yourself in. So today I have a guest that is going to help me out with this, and we're going to thoroughly explain some things if we can. And I'm going to let her introduce herself to you guys. So I'm going to turn it over and now allow her to introduce herself to you.
Sure. Well, I'm going to help you to the best of my ability. Let's put that disclaimer out there. So my name is Keshia Sandidge. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I used to be on the Board of Education here in Cabarrus County for 2020 to 2024. And so I've worked a lot in education. I've worked a lot with folks who have mental illness, substance use disorders, or intellectual and developmental disabilities, and I'm really very involved in this community.
Okay. Now, what's your current family dynamics? Because in our community, it's very rare that we see mother, father discipling our children in the direction we should go. So how does your family dynamics work?
Sure. So my husband and I, Rick Sandidge, we have been in Cabarrus County since 1997. We met at Barbara Scotia College, which is our historically Black college here in Cabarrus County. They are on the rise, so I don't know if folks are very aware that they will start classes next year, but we met there. We got married in 2001, and we had a son in 2000. So there's four of us. There's myself, my husband, my daughter Brittany, and my son Junior.
Okay. Now I have one question I wanted to ask you, getting into the conversation, and is, how do you feel the environment and community affects the culture of education in our communities?
Yeah, so you'll hear a lot of the times that, in this part of the county that, it's upper epsilon and our kids get in trouble more in those areas and, we're not welcome in those areas. You'll hear that a lot of times. So we've had, I started attending the Logan community meetings, and in there you'll see a lot of people from the city, but you don't see a lot of the residents. So you don't see a lot of young folks that are in those communities. You don't see, the folks that are actually living there. So I think, when we think about education and when we think about its impacts on our community, we don't necessarily see, our kids being able to thrive in certain schools because of the color of their skin or because they're getting in trouble disproportionately more than their counterparts. So that's what I think about when I answer that question, or when you think about, why are our kids in these situations often? Why are our kids, the ones that, have a difficult time getting to, like the end? They don't understand. Like my daughter, she doesn't know what she wants to do when she leaves school. She graduates next week. And it's like, she has the foundation. She has a two-parent household. She has supports, but just understanding that the potential is there and it doesn't matter what you look like. So that's what I think about.
Now, your answer kind of puts me forward into the conversation, but I'm gonna go ahead and address it now. It's like me and my wife, we kind of I'm not gonna say forced, but we had a conversation with our children when they were very small, and not knowing spiritually that we were able to identify what it was that their interests were, what their skill set was. So we sat down with them, and our youngest daughter, it's crazy, we were playing Monopoly. And through the course of playing Monopoly, she was 6. Well, no, she was 5. And Jess had started school, and she was the banker. And she was the one who was my biggest competition playing the game, because she understood the more that she owned, the less likely that
is the 6-year-old.
The 6-year-old.
Okay.
But she figured out without even reading the rules. She figured out the game by watching and learning, and she was the banker during the process. So for
I
her,
have a question though.
yes, ma'am.
So what is this 6-year-old doing now? That's what I want to know.
She graduates Saturday, and upcoming Saturday, and she's going to school for law. So that's me and my wife kind of pushed her. Plus, her mouth is you want to try to find a place to put your foot.
She's the debater, I'm
Right.
guessing. That's why she's going to law school.
So we sending her to law school. And the baby boy, he wanted to get into being a dentist, but as he got older, he was real good in the IT field. So now he's going to college for IT. And our daughter, she wanted to do hair, follow the family business because it's on both sides of our family. So we directed, she wanted to do hair and wanted to do that coming out of school. But I understood that a lot of money, because she would have made a lot of money at 19, 20. She wouldn't have known what to do with it. She just would accumulate itself. So we sent her to school to learn finance and business. And our other son, he's always wanted to build stuff. So he went to school. He graduated as an engineer. And our oldest son, who's in California, he's also in the IT. He's a computer.
I just hear
whiz.
money.
Right.
That's what.
Right. So
I just hear money.
So, but I said that was like, we in our household, we directed our children by their strengths and their desires and led them that way. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of things that our kids know now that weren't taught in home, they've been taught in school.
Right.
And then I'm looking at the direction society's going. So it's like, has school and you're being on the inside seeing the curriculum, I think they're kind of socially engineering our children in a direction that they want them to follow with what society's going, instead of educating our children and preparing them for the future that lies ahead.
So I think, and I hear where you're coming from, and this has been, kind of the talk of specific communities. But I think that teachers have been forced to be everything for children. And I think we have to realize that. So do you think that, you're a barber. If somebody came in and said, hey, you need to be, you already a therapist. We talked about that a little bit. But if somebody said you had to be a financial person, if somebody told you had to be the person that preps the food, if somebody told me that you have to, if a kid or somebody getting your chair is sick, you have to take care of them, like that would put you in a whirlwind.
Right.
And that's what's happening and has been happening for quite some time with our teachers. And so when people tell me like, oh, our teachers are indoctrinating our kids, and I'm just like, when do they have the time to do that?
Right.
They got 60 kids in a classroom sometimes. And it's like they have to tend to all 60 of those kids being the one adult in that room. And you can probably tell, I really take offense to that thought process when people are just, dragging teachers through the mud. Now, granted, you've got some bad apples. They're everywhere. You got bad apples in the barbershop. You got bad apples in the bank. But to put out this notion that all teachers or teachers in general are, telling our kids that they can't do X, Y, and Z, like I have to disagree with that. Now, while my daughter doesn't know what she wants to do right now, she has options. She's taken a test to tell her what would be maybe the best thing for her to do, where her mindset is. She's also got a drone certification. I told you that earlier. She's looking at, trying to, get into aviation. She's got options, but it was teachers helping us as parents to guide her. I see teachers as a part of the village that it takes to raise a child.
Right.
And so, but another thing is, I don't see a lot of people that look like my kid in leadership roles. And so let's talk about that. That's the concern that I do have in this county. That may not be the same way for the next county over, but, I think that tells kids that they can't aspire to, be in leadership roles. That's where I think the damage is happening.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the classroom and the teacher. I'm just trying to figure out where they got the time for that.
Right.
You can tell that's a hot button for me, because teachers just, and I'm not just teachers, because teachers are not the only people that help to be that village. There's staff, there's the janitor. I think you should treat everybody from the janitor on up to the superintendent the same, because all of those folks are impacting our kids in some way, shape, or form. But back to my other point. in 2018, I had been thinking about running for the Board of Education, and it wasn't until I started like really paying attention to who sits on the school board that it was like, you have to do it. There was not one single person that looks like me. I'm the third Black person that's been on that school board. And since its inception.
Right.
So those are the things that I feel take away from our kids more than anything else. So
Right.
I'm sorry,
So-
I went on a little tangent.
No, I'm
there.
saying, so you're talking from the perspective of there's not enough representation. We don't have enough representation.
And I think that does more damage to our ability, our kids' ability to see themselves in various roles
Right.
than a teacher indoctrinating them
Okay.
to tell them that they can't. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's where the what's the boogeyman is.
Right. Now, my perspective more is like the wizard behind the curtain.
Okay.
Like the curriculum that's been forced on teachers, because I've spoken to teachers, and some of them walked away from education because of the curriculum that they had to teach and the new things that were coming down. So that's
give me an example, because the curriculum is developed by the states. So the Department of Education, so like our state superintendent and our North Carolina School Board Association, and those folks are what's helping to, and legislators are helping to drive what is taught in our schools, and also what it looks like in our schools. So like the dynamics, the buildings, how all of that stuff is being directed by the states.
Gotcha.
So give me an example of what teachers are feeling like they're forced to have to teach.
Okay, like I had he was in elementary, and he said that he walked away from education because he couldn't allow the kids to come in. Two things that bothered him. One was discipline. He felt like the children was taking over the classroom. They had more power than he did. And also, he had an issue with the new thing with the little boys coming in one way, dressed like a girl one day. And these are things that he had to adapt, and he had to try to get the other kids to adapt to. He said he had trouble with that.
So that's not coming down from curriculum, though.
Right.
That's
Okay.
not what's being taught in the classroom. That's what kids are seeing just on the streets. I mean,
Right.
Susie might be Johnny. I mean, not just in school. That's happening in our
the community,
communities. You know
right.
what I'm saying? And Susie or Johnny might be, Susie, and Susie might be like a real boy, and they might be in the girls' bathroom in the community.
Right.
Right? Not necessarily in school, but the focus has been laser on schools.
Right.
And this goes back to my earlier point of we are blaming the school system for everything. We are expecting them to be the teacher, the mama, the daddy,
Yeah.
the whole system inside of one part of the system.
Right.
So I'm thinking, okay, we go to school, we learning reading, writing,
Right.
math.
Right.
Those are the basics,
Right.
And then to get out and go to college, sometimes we don't even use those things, right? And so I just find it hard for us to say, I'm struggling with teaching this kid X, and then what are you doing about it? Because if you're not opening your mouth and saying anything, then you kind of part of the problem too.
Right.
That's why I ran for school board.
Right.
I got tired of seeing what I was seeing on the school board during COVID times. I didn't like some of the decisions that they were making, but if you are not a part of the solution, you are the problem.
Right.
And
right.
so instead of doing all this all day, go put action behind that. Help out in some capacity. So, I'm not on the school board anymore, right? I didn't win that election. I'm still in these streets. I'm still making sure I attend local community meetings. I've been speaking to the school board. I've been speaking to the county commission about things that I'm seeing in my community that affect the children and the people who live in those communities. I didn't just sit down and watch TV and, kind of just chill out. You have to speak up.
Right.
You have to put action behind your complaints. We can identify problems all day,
Right.
but if we don't bring solutions, then how does the problem get fixed?
I think a lot of times what happens is, based off what you just said, not getting involved but commentating creates more contention,
Yeah.
more confusion than I honestly get it.
We deal with these hot button issues, right? Like LGBTQ, that's a hot button issue.
Right.
People are on different sides of this issue, but it's an issue because we make it an issue, right? So like, just what was this last couple weeks ago? One of the school board suggested that they pray before meetings. This was something that was brought up and was supposed to be voted on, and it brought tension to the school board. It brought tension to the community, and and I'm just gonna put it out there because I've already done this on my social media. So the Republican Party for Cabarrus County went out and shared a soundbite, and the lady who was opposing prayer in the school board, she's like, we have so many different religions in this community. We've got Hindu, Muslim, we've got Buddhists, we've got atheists. And then we're in a public school setting where they are going to have to be mandated to be here because their kids are getting awards. There's hundreds of kids in these meetings. And so we're forcing something on them, pretty much indoctrinating, which is what we talked about in some capacity. We're forcing something on them. And I mean, that thing just blew up like it was nothing. Lady getting death threats, bringing danger to this community because somebody sees something one way and somebody else sees it another way. And who's wrong? Who's wrong in that? Who's wrong because they feel like they're LGBTQIA? That might not be what I want for my life.
Right.
But why am I focusing my energy and time that I should be spending focusing on my own kids, focusing on my own community and what's happening in my house, on targeting an individual who is living their life? That's where I'm at. That ain't where everybody else is at. And I get flack for that,
We're kind of along the same lines. Like, we run our household, and me and my wife was having this conversation here. Like, everything we let in our house has to be on the same page as far as our house. We worship God. So, as for me and my house, we worship the Lord. But we don't force our ways on anybody else. Like the LGBTQ situation. We told our kids from day one, you're going to be what you were at the day of birth. That's the only way you're going to walk into my household, and that's the only way I'm going to deal with you directly. So I totally get what you're saying about, and it wasn't a thing until I think laws started getting passed and people started. So I think it's more legislation.
We
issues.
Created a boogeyman.
Right.
We did.
Legislation issue.
And then when we created that boogeyman, we caused people to focus more on it.
Right.
Want to know more about it, want to get involved in it.
Right.
Oh, maybe this is something we did that.
Right. Because it was already around us and we didn't even give it was not even a second thought.
Right.
But I kind of think, but this country was built on rebellion. So I think when you legislate something, that rebellion comes up in people.
Yeah. I can see that. See that. I think people going to be who they are, whether we like it or not,
Right.
And if that's in my household and in my kids, then, I have the ability to do something about that.
Correct.
I don't always have the ability to do something about, like, your kids,
Right. Right.
Them your kids.
Right.
And I just think, like, when did we get away from that? I remember my mom knew everybody down the street. I can go over somebody's house because my mama knew them already. We don't even have that situation. We don't even know who lives next door to us now. You know why?
I'm a very big, I think words are the most important part of life. And that's what, in the beginning, he spoke the world into existence and only took his hands and made us. I've said this millions of times. So if you look at, it used to be neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hear now? I'm going to the hood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the neighbor part's taken out of it. So it's no question why we don't know our neighbors anymore.
So that's not the case with my husband. My husband, somebody moved down the block. He don't care what they look like, who they is. He knocking on their door. He walking the dog. He making sure he meet them. He tells me who's on our block.
Right.
So, but we don't always have that a lot of the times. Like, I speak a lot about, because I'm very involved in what happens in the local community. Predominantly Black community in Cabarrus County, and they built townhouses in the middle of what some would consider the hood. And then they're not even getting bought. They're $240,000. And the neighborhood, the folks that are already in the neighborhood, can't necessarily afford that. So I just think we create these situations,
Right.
And they're intentional.
Right.
Like I keep talking about the boogeyman. We create it. It's intentional, and then because of those things, we wonder why this is happening over here. Well, because you did X, Y, and Z over here. What
Right.
did you expect?
Right. Right. And it has a lot.
It's not rocket science.
Right. I think it revolves around us not being involved. That's what I meant, like in the opening when I was talking about we're more into entertainment and not the education and being involved. Because gentrification wouldn't take place if I understood you was coming to buy my home at the cheapest price available. Then the day you purchased that home, I look at that home online, and you bought it from me for 80 to 100,000. Now you have it back online for 330, because we're not involved. We don't know what's going on, and I think a lot of the problem in our educational system is the parents aren't involved with the children. They're not involved with the education. How many parents actually, me and my wife, every teacher that our children have ever had, on day one, we would go in and meet that teacher. I would give that teacher my expectations of what I expected my child to get from this classroom and how my child would be treated. Because I know a lot of times with us not being involved, our children don't get a chance to be children. They're adults from day one. A 6-year-old is getting treated like he just broke into the World Trade Center. You know what I'm saying?
Same in my house. Like my son used to get mad at me. Like, Mom, don't say. Same thing. Here's my number. Anytime you need to call me, email, whatever mode works for you. This is my child, and I'm responsible for my child.
Right.
If you have any problems, let me know.
Right.
I said that every time. Every open house, I went to every open house. But like, this is where I talk about almost every single post I make. # It takes a village.
Right.
Some of our parents can't be there.
Right.
They don't have the wherewithal, like their minds aren't there. We got real bad substance use. We've got mental illness that's happening. Then we also have parents who got to work. Single parents who are working 2 and 3 jobs and just can't be there. Where is that village?
Right.
So I think that there are some parents who maybe can and, they just don't go. But I also think there's quite a bit of parents who would love to be there and can't for whatever reason. So where's the village for them? Where's the village to supporting that child when that parent can't be there? We don't have that anymore.
We don't.
I would love to get back to that.
Right.
I'm telling you, I go to the Logan community meetings once a month. The next meeting is on Monday, every 4th Monday of the month. It's the one of the biggest historically Black communities in Cabarrus County. And like, all I see is older folks there. I'm probably the youngest person they go to, and I don't even live in the Logan community. But I have a vested interest because the people in that community look like me and they look like my kids.
Right.
So I think, we've got to we meaning our generation, I'm 46, our age needs to get back to that village and supporting each other, even when we don't know what that person may be going through. We're so busy in our own house, in our own space, worried about our own situation. And while that may be fine, the community around us affects our kids, whether we like it or not.
Right.
We can be in our house teaching so many different things, but the community that is around our house, if we got the child molester living next door and we don't know that affects our household immediately.
Right.
We have to look at our situation, our protections of our kids differently. So we have to start building that village to make sure our kids are safe, whether they're at school, outside playing, or on a field trip, wherever that might be. We've got to build that village to safeguard our kids and future kids.
Right. And I learned a little bit about the Logan community with another guest that we had. The Logan community used to have one of the best schools in this area, and they were competing against our competitors
and segregation
and beating them, destroying them. And I think that school was dismantled because of that.
It's no longer there.
Right. Okay. I was just making sure that we talk about the Logan community. I was still talking about. I
truly love the Logan community. You'll probably hear me talk about them a little bit more. And again, because they look like me.
But that's new information. I never heard of the Logan community still being active.
They have an association. They meet every month. But like I said, the police officers come in there, code enforcement comes in there, school board members come in there, county commission comes in there. But I don't know if that's happening in every single, because there are other neighborhood associations across Cabarrus County. I hadn't seen that anywhere else. I mean, you got that many people in the Logan community meetings. And then, I don't know, Gibson Village, I've been to their neighborhood association meeting. I didn't see all them folks in that meeting. And again, I haven't been to every association meeting, so I don't know. But I can tell you every month at Logan, there is Concord Police, there's Concord Code Enforcement, there's at least one school board member there, there's likely a county commissioner in there. Every single, the housing authority is in that meeting, every single meeting.
So what time and place is this?
It said
to get more people
the
involved?
Logan Recreation, and it is at 6 o'clock every fourth Monday of the month.
Okay.
So with that amount of important people in a space, that should tell you something.
Right.
They see something.
There's work being done.
Right. They see something in that community because all of those folks are attending. But we aren't there.
Right.
I'm the youngest person in there. A lot of the times we aren't there, and we're the people who are going to carry the torch. Because I see, people that look like my grandmother in there or my great grandmother in there, and they need to pass the torch to somebody.
Correct. Now, my mind is spinning because right now, Cabarrus County is becoming one of the most prominent parts of this Charlotte City area. Mm-hmm. And our role with what Logan is doing can take on a bigger role, because if we can get our young men and women under control, they're trying to advertise this as a safe haven. But with the activities that are happening in the community, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we
So how do we get them? What do you mean? I want to understand under control.
Right. Okay, say for example, we have a lot of, I know in this area, A.L. Brown has been considered kind of like Fair East Side from Lean On Me.
Oh, okay.
And I hear a lot of students talk about the activities that's taking place in the hallways, all the drama that's going on in the schools. If we can use that to get more parents involved, to get more people talking, and get this thing under control, this prominent area, that we can be part of this prominent area instead of raising the prices and moving us out of this prominent area. Kind of what we was talking about before. Get some businesses started, get some things flowing, because a lot of the aggravation that I see with these young men and women is not the educational part, it's the frustration in where do I fit in society? What you were saying earlier about not seeing enough people in the roles. Mm-hmm. So if we can kind of, you remember when we went to school, you had the boys would go to shop, they would go to automotive, they had classes. We, without asking the government, we need to take responsibility within our communities. And that's something that Logan, by them bringing all those instruments in from the community, we can organize and get something established to where these young men and women, when they don't know, to come to the trade school, come learn a trade, come learn something to feed yourself, other than everybody can't be an athlete. Everybody can't be a rapper. I want our kids to, it irks me tremendously to hear a kid. I'm talking to a kid. I'm like, man, what you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a rapper. First thing I said, oh, so you want to be the one who continues to disrespect our women, to continue to party and bring violence to our communities? Is that what you want? And they look at me like they're crazy. And a lot of times their parents are like, what are you talking about? Because we've allowed decadence to become a culture. We just constantly, every time I listen at the new age of rap, we're getting lower and lower. And it kind of reminds me of the prodigal son, like, are we at the pig trough yet? To where we realize that this music, no other genre of music, brings decadence to their people like our music.
So, and I had a similar conversation with one of my friends the other day about our use of the word nigger.
Yes.
And I feel, but the conversation was like to almost justify what Shiloh did to the little black boy,
right.
Autistic black boy. And for me, I don't. It's hard for us to trust. And right. I'm saying us. I'm speaking for me as a black woman.
Right.
It's hard for me to trust other people. So that not being able to trust people and allowing people to tell me and guide me into things, I think, is what does a disservice for our ability to thrive. So I'm gonna put that in the layman's terms. So instead of telling people in our community what they should be doing, I just show it. I just
Right.
am that person. And I don't feel like I should be going to somebody and telling them, you need to stop using the word nigga.
Right.
That's not my place. But I can show you that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to carry myself in this way. And I also can show you that I'm willing to put myself on the line so that you can see that this is possible for you.
Right.
So I think we've gotten into this culture of can't nobody tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, while that's all fine and dandy, I think that's also what limits us to be able to, reach various goals.
Right.
Because we shut ourselves out of the communication with other people and learning a trade. There's a brother that is from the Logan community that does like a summer camp for kids to learn how to do electrical stuff, to learn how to do construction. And, folks just don't support it. So,
Right.
I mean, pretty much having to come out of his pocket. And how often can you do that? For
Right.
how long can you do that? So I think that there's not a lack of desire to want these things and, aspire to do X, Y, and Z. There's lack of opportunity sometimes. And I think we are sometimes at fault for that lack of opportunity because we've closed ourselves up. I went to a school board meeting. This was back in, I want to say, December of last year, and they were trying to fill the seat. And so here you got this all white school board, right, in Cabarrus County, and they're considering applications. Only one of those applications was a person of color. So of course I'm in there because I was only one person of color on the school board for quite some time. So I'm in there advocating for them to select somebody who's going to be able to maneuver into these communities of color.
Right.
You cannot expect for people of color to trust you. They just don't.
Right.
These are typically the people who they've come remove their kids. These are the people who's usually putting them behind bars. It's going to take some time for them to trust you.
Right.
So I think that we shouldn't just sit down and just take it, of course. But we also got to be willing to, talk to one another, be willing to support each other in our
Right.
businesses, be able to, express how you feel without being mad. Like how, we just talked about the LGBTQ. People are on two sides of it.
Right.
Religion, people are on various sides of it, but you have to respect that person for where they are and not think that they're going to be just like you and be
Right.
mad when they're not.
Right.
So I think that's what's happening when we talk about our kids not being able to thrive and not being able to see themselves in spaces. And I think we limit ourselves as a result of those things. I try, as you can see, I try to take away the negative connotation that often Black people just get just for being Black.
Right.
We can't do X, Y, and Z just because we Black, but that's who.
We set too many limitations.
Right. We
Right.
are doing this to ourselves. And even with the teacher situation, if every teacher is bad, then that says something about the people who's hiring them. That says something about the community not doing anything about it. Every teacher can't be bad.
Right.
Every teacher can't be indoctrinating kids. So let's identify the ones who maybe they might need some technical assistance or some coaching or some support, and support those things because we already don't have enough teachers. We already don't have enough Black businesses. We talked about not having a Black grocery store that we can go into.
Right.
We don't even have a Black gas station that we can go to. But those
Right.
things used to be in the Logan community. They had their own pool.
Right.
Not there anymore. And I just think we have to change our thought process about our ability as people. And I mean, regardless of what color you are.
Right.
And stop, we intentionally divide ourselves. I don't know. I think about the crabs in the barrel when I just said that.
Right.
We intentionally divide ourselves. There's enough for everybody. Figure out what you want to do. Figure out what it takes for you to do that. Make you get you some goals. Put them down on paper. As you accomplish them, check them off. And then the only person that limits you is you.
Right.
But I'm going to go back to we have to support each other too.
I agree.
My nail lady, Black. My skin lady, Black.
Right.
The person that does my hair, Black. Anything that I can do to support Black people, because I feel like it is so hard for us to get ahead. And some people will be like, well, you just crying, blah, blah, blah. That's not the case. No, that's the case.
Yeah. And like we talked earlier, I think a lot of it's systemic. And it's also a lot of it, when you say crabs in a barrel, a lot of it is, if you're thriving in the community, And I learned this as an early barber. A guy told me, he said, man, don't you drive that new vehicle to work? I'm like, man, I said, you sound like the job. He was like, he had bought a new pickup truck. And he was like, I drove that truck. And a guy told me he normally tip. I was like, you're not going to tip today? He was like, man, I ain't helping you pay for that truck you just bought.
It's so bad.
And that thing stuck with me because I'm saying to myself, like, I see a person look like me doing well. Man, I pray for that brother. I pray that God continue to lift him up, continue to show him more favor, because if he can do it, I can do it.
Right.
That's how I see it. It gives me room to improve when I see someone doing better than me. But I think that's also in a lot of people don't use understanding, and people don't read, and people don't. And I've learned that when people don't work hard as you, that envy, that jealousy, because you're what they could become, but they're too lazy to do it. I think laziness is a factor and that's what I use in allowing people to be in my circle. If I notice that you're lazy, you can't be in my circle, because I know at some point you're gonna begin to hate me, because my wife and anybody around me will tell you, sleep to me is a luxury. We're constantly on the go, and she fusses at me all the time because I might be in here from 6 in the morning to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then I get home and I'm back at 6 again. I come in, spend a little time with her. We eat, we talk, watch a little TV, pray, read the Bible, and go to sleep. And I might not get but 3 or 4 hours, and she's fussing, like, stay. But the whole thing is, if lazy people are in your circle, expect them to be the Judas in your life. And I've learned that. And
I think you are what's in your circle.
right.
Like you become what you are around, right? I agree with working hard, but I mean, I also think that I always take it back to color, and I hate that, but it just is what it is. I also think we have to work 10 times harder than our counterparts, and I also feel like that's not fair.
No.
I mean, it's nothing I can do about it besides, notice that it's there, continue to work my behind off, and then say something about it too.
Right.
But it still boils down to, like, who is supporting who.
Right.
And we talked about the media earlier. How much of us not supporting each other or us bringing each other down has to do with the media? I mean, I told you I bought a new truck. I didn't go and post that on social media because I don't want anybody to think I'm better than them. I'm not.
Right.
I'm living just like you living. I might be doing a few different things, but I don't want anybody to take that as a reason for them not to associate with me or for them not to want better for themselves. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, it's hard out here. Being a Black woman, and people be like, well, oh, whatever, you just said. No, it is hard. Getting up every morning just to make yourself, oh, I got to go out here and deal with these folks. I'm going to have to deal with this today. You have to prepare yourself for that stuff. And then you might not even accomplish what you set out to do for that day because of something somebody else did. And then you have to deal with that, putting yourself down for that, continually having to build yourself up for that. And then at the end of the day, if no one is supporting your craft, it doesn't matter how good you are at it.
Right.
You're not going to succeed.
Right.
You're going to have to. Those are the people that are watching outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you get up every day, 6 o'clock, come in here at 6 o'clock, don't come home till 7. If nobody is supporting that craft,
it's just idle time.
True.
Right.
So you have to be cognizant of what you do. Like, don't go out there and drive to work in that new. I mean, you have to be cognizant of that. Don't post that on social media because, you have to be cognizant of those things.
Right.
And that's another thing that eats away at our ability to work together.
Now, I will tell you, a tool that I used, and it's worked well for me because it's allowed me to be in every situation and maintain professionalism. Because I understand that I have a business with my partner. So whatever I do out here in this community, it's not going to affect me and my household, but it's going to affect him and his household. So I do a self-evaluation every single day of myself, because a lot of times we may have an issue underlying. And in that underlying issue, somebody can come up to you who normally somebody bump into you you probably be like, oh, okay, it's crowded, and you don't give it any thought. But because you have that underlying issue, now that person bumps into you accidentally, you go off.
Mhm.
And that's not that person bumped into you. And so to maintain my professionalism, I always do a self-evaluation of myself each and every day. And there's always an encounter that I had there where I'm like, I think that kid that wouldn't be still, I think I was a little sharp when I spoke to the next client because of that. So, I mean, just something petty.
Mhm.
But those are the little small things I pay attention to, because at any given moment, if I don't have control of myself, then now I'm giving somebody else the opportunity to have control of me. And I get teased about it. My wife, she always tell me I'm a control freak. I like the control. But it's not that I like the control, is that this is my life. And I would not give somebody else the remote to it. I refuse to. So that self-evaluation keeps the remote in my hand.
So I would say to use that philosophy when it comes to your thoughts about like how other people are doing things, and not allowing for them to control how you respond to it. Because like people they gonna do them.
Right. All day.
I mean, every day. And
Yeah.
like, so like I'll use the example with my son. He used to be like, these teachers, blah, 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 and they did, X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, and you had the opportunity to determine how you reacted to that situation,
Right.
or how you responded to that situation. I don't do a self-evaluation, but I try to maintain my composure, because I'm in a lot of situations where I'm being used as the example of a Black woman. So I have to be reminding myself, continue. I just go in my car and I have a whole concert. I mean, music blasting, and that's how I calm myself down.
Right.
It's something simple, but it works for me.
Right.
Because I know that I don't get a second chance to do things
Right. And it's,
pretty often.
the pressure is always on that we represent a whole ethnicity when we go forward.
And like, why do I have to have that on my shoulders? Like, who gave me that responsibility? I surely didn't give it to myself, but I respect that though, because that tells me that I have an opportunity to show somebody something different.
Right.
Like, all Black people are not lazy. All Black people are not gonna be out here committing crimes.
Right.
All people aren't using the word,
Right.
every time. All Black people aren't out here doing X, Y, and Z. I have the ability to show them that, because
Right.
they pay attention.
But see, the fact that you're condescending to that lets me know that you were born. The Most High blessed you to do that. That's
And
your
a mom
calling.
and daddy. My mama didn't
Right.
play.
Right. But it's generational. It's generational.
Yeah,
And see,
yeah, this is true.
yeah. And so, like, the same way that you were being blessed with the blessings of generational, we also have to. Me and my wife did the opposite. We took the blessings and removed the curses. Like, and we're seeing the fruits of it. That's why, like, if you were to be around us, people look at us like we're aliens, because we carry ourselves in such a manner. Our children, they joke, they play, they do like other kids, but they know their role. And your role is, I like when my kids would do something that I didn't agree with, we can change that last name. My grandfather gave me that last name. And that name, he carried it with dignity and respect. If you can't carry it with dignity and respect, we can go change that name, because you're not going to destroy his legacy nor mine.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Like my husband, we have this thing where we're like, this is how we've stayed together and married so long. Like, these kids didn't ask to be here.
Right.
They are here. They deserve both of their parents. We are the adults in this situation, and we're going to figure out how we fix this problem together. We're not going to include them in the problem. We're going to figure it out together. But that's what works for us, and that's what we've been able to do. That's what works for you and your wife, and what you all have been able to do. But there are lots of people in our community that don't have that.
Right.
And those are the people that I'm saying are our next door neighbors. And regardless of, we got our house situated, they can go awry and mess up our house like that. Like, no lie, like that. And I'm just saying, how do we support those folks in our community? How do we identify those folks and make sure that we good, and we going to also make sure that they good too? And I'm not saying, go financially responsible for them, but like, lift them up. And we were talking earlier about like the Department of Education and how that affects what happens here locally. So like, I think there's some good to the Department of Education
Mhm.
pulling services, but there's also some consequences to that. And it's like I asked a question of our legislators about, how does pulling DEI out of schools, what money goes with that? And
Right.
the money that you pull from that, what position is that? And then when you figure out what position that is, how does that affect our kids? So
Right.
fine, you don't want to have DEI, fine, you don't want to have the Department of Education, but where is that funding? What is that funding right now?
Right.
And where does that funding come from after that?
Right.
That's where I have a problem.
And that's my question, because like I look at a lot of from the outside looking in. Okay, the educational lottery, it was supposed to create revenue to help in areas where it lacked. And I watch the news and I see the educational community buying used buses from Tennessee. Then I'm looking at like, okay, we're not getting books. The kids aren't having books anymore. So we're going electronic with the books. So where are we saving this money, and where's this money going? That's it, because a used bus is not, if you're going to get buses, I would think you would buy new buses. But
I would
where's
think
that
you would buy
savings
an
go?
electric one, but
Right.
money don't grow on trees. Okay, so let's talk about lottery funding, because I hear that all the time.
Right.
Why are we broke? Why we can't pay for this? Why the school system this and that? We got lottery funding. And we get it. In 2024, Cabarrus County Schools got like over $15 million in lottery funds.
Right.
And it goes to each of the different school systems across North Carolina. So lottery funds do go help to pay for things. They use it for like things like, staff salaries. They used it for like kindergarten resources. It went across various things.
Mhm.
There is never enough money. It seems like we're operating in a deficit.
Right.
$11 million deficit, but we have lottery funds. And then we're still talking about pulling money from Department of Education, pulling money from DEI, and we're operating in a deficit now. So I'm gonna go back to my earlier point. If we're operating in a deficit, we're talking about pulling all of these current resources away. What are those things currently funding, and where are we gonna get that money from? So we already don't have what we need. So
Right.
we're just gonna go and pull more money from it. And then what's happening with the kids? We're giving more money to private and charter schools, but we're pulling money away from public school. I mean, I don't know. Did you go to public school when you were?
I did.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But
our kids went mainly private.
And so I don't have a problem with private school.
Right.
But I do have a problem with hundreds of millions of dollars going to private schools at the cost of public school. 70% of kids go to public schools.
Right.
And then people will be like, well, they can go apply for these opportunity scholarships. And then you hear traditionally opportunity scholarships are going to the people who's already in the private school, the people who can afford to pay for private school. And then the kids who have a disability, those folks ain't gonna get into private school.
Right.
So they have to be served by that public school, because public school has to take everybody that walks into the door, long as they in that circle or the where they live is in that school district. And so I just feel like if we can determine, we're gonna pull this funding away. We're gonna pull this away, right? But here is what you can do in order for that funding not to impact learning and academics or anything else for those kids that are currently being served by this institution. That's how I feel about us making those decisions up here that ultimately impact what's happening down there.
Now, I'm gonna give a take that this is an old school take, because currently we're not in position to do it. But our educational system that we had within our communities, if we go back to our grandparents' day, they produced some of the greatest thinkers and the greatest innovators of this society that led us in. A lot of what we use today come from those minds. I don't think from this current educational system that we can get that from our community, because we're in our, when we taught ourselves about us. We taught ourselves about how to carry yourself, how to, we prepared each other for the next step. we're not being prepared now in a sense of how many times the same way we spend our money is the same way we're getting educated. We're learning about everybody else but ourselves. And I think that a lot of what our children lack is the confidence. That's why they can't play that role, because they don't have the confidence. They can't see themselves in that role. But if we look, how many times has it been taught how many black legislators we had right after slavery? We had black governors, we had black senators, black congressmen, and they passed laws which the Reformation period was one of the best periods that we ever experienced in this country. And it was so short-lived because we kind of like what's happening now. That generation understood education. That generation understood being involved, and understood representation. And we're at a stage now where our children are not understanding our drive. That drive that me and my wife see it because we base, I'm not gonna say forced, but we constantly reminded our children, hey man, you drive. And I don't think that's being driven home now. And I don't think from the current educational system, we would ever get another Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers. I mean, I could go on and on. We'd never get that from this because our children don't even know themselves.
So what do you think the answer to that is? Be my question.
What the Logan community has started.
Okay.
I think resurfacing and bringing and reestablishing schools within our community, because if we be honest, we use the acronym PWI. Okay, we know exactly what that means. So, and we know what HBCU means.
Mm-hmm.
So why not start to develop pockets of these? There's funding that's available. Like you was speaking about the man that was teaching the trades, and he was teaching electricity, most of them out of his pocket. Let's start using some of this institutional money like grants to start forming some of these, because it's a gentleman that I've been talking to in Greensboro, and we want to get a building, and I want to start like when young men come home from prison, redirecting that, giving them an opportunity to redirect their life. And also get our young children, when they come home from school, we have a tutoring session where we also teach confidence, where we also teach, inspire them to be, don't tell me you want to be an athlete, be a doctor, be a nurse. These are the things that we need within our community, because me, myself, and I hate to, I'm gonna speak from my perspective, I don't trust doctors. I was just telling my wife, I finally found me a Nigerian doctor that I'm gonna go to, and I'm gonna, of course, ask some questions and find out where his mind is. Because I'm looking across the board, everything that involves us is now decadence. I got a client he works in radiology, and he's a close friend as well. And I hear him, he and I have personal talks about how we're looked at coming into the medical. Sometimes people are laughing at these young men when they come in shot.
Yeah, I think that goes back to us supporting one another.
Right.
Like not being like going into one place and seeing just, the same thing and then walking out and spending your money somewhere else. Right. I also think we need to start identifying the weight of our spending. Like I feel like our spending is what
makes those people rich.
It just it pays for everybody, right. Our spending. So, but I think also we have to consider what I talked about earlier in that trust in us being able to, build that village that we don't have.
Right.
I don't know where that starts though.
I think, I'm gonna be honest, I'm inspired to try to check out and see what's going on at Logan's. And everybody think Black Wall Street was Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. No, there was 5 here in North Carolina. We don't talk about how this was widespread across the country. Rosewood in Florida. I mean, I could think of several places in South Carolina. So the same thing that Logan's doing, it needs to be in every community.
I can see that, but I just don't know. Like, for example, you were talking about the school system. What they're teaching in our school system doesn't come from the local level.
Right.
We had to fight at one point to get, local history taught in our history lessons, right? And then so what's coming in now is coming from up here.
Right.
And it's just trickling down into the school system. And I think like if that doesn't change, which I don't foresee it changing anytime soon, then what you are envisioning, I don't want to say it'll never happen, but it's not going to happen through that channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to get this, large group of people to see that vision at the same time. And
Right.
that's where I'm struggling at. Getting that group of people to see that vision and be trusting enough to put their brain power, their collective bargaining power into a system that they didn't develop. That's where I feel the struggle is. I think you're right on target, like what Logan is doing, bringing all of those entities. But the part that is missing, and what I said earlier, is I see older Black people in those
Right.
meetings.
Right.
And I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny, like their time is almost up.
Right.
So it's like they have nobody to give the baton to. So who is carrying that legacy? Who's carrying that idea? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I think it's going to take our generation going in there and getting the baton, understanding the direction, being willing to learn from that older generation. We got to a point where we can't even, we disrespecting mamas and, grandmas and things of that nature, but getting to a point where we're listening to that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
understanding like where, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, where those teachings came from, and being willing to, what's the word I'm looking for? Ingest it and put it back out there.
Right.
That's where I think the struggle is going to be, unfortunately.
Now I'm gonna be honest. Like a day in the life here in the shop, and my producer can attest to it, my wife, and anybody who comes through these doors. That's the constant conversation that takes place in here. And the whole thing is teach one. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't waste an opportunity to let these young men and even people of my generation, I let them know, like, hey, bro, this is how men should carry themselves. But I don't have it openly. These are like one-on-one conversations because I understand the male ego.
Mm-hmm.
So like one-on-one conversations, I try to sharpen up my brethren. And so like what I'm saying is like, now that we're talking about Logan, it's going to be on the tip of my tongue in here as well. And I hope that, and I'm going to go over it with my partner as well, this can be something to where we can get more people as they come in. Like I want to get a group of men to come see what's going on at Logan's now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to just come and see what's going on. I want us to be able, like I was saying, branch this thing off. Because our generation, well, I'm going to say the males of our generation, dropped the baton. Because it was the older men that poured into us, and we're not pouring into these young people. We're too busy saying that they're crazy, that I would have never did that in my day. But if we think back, people were saying that about us. Because the next generation, of course, is getting worse and worse. But it's up to us to teach them that you are getting worse. And
yeah, I think doing that and then not letting up, like continuing to be present. Because we oftentimes we'll start something and then we like, where's so-and-so at? They wasn't here. They ain't been here the last few meetings or whatever have you. But, even in that space, people are presenting to the community. Like they had one lady to come and talk about like deeds. People losing their loved one's house. They had a lawyer come talk about, what processes to follow. So there's tons of information being given. But that crowd is not necessarily taking that somewhere else. Like we could be that vessel to take it somewhere else.
Right.
So I say, come on. One of the things I've talked about a lot, like, you want to support Black-owned businesses and things to that nature, but there is not an array of Black-owned businesses that can fully meet the needs of the folks that are in our communities.
Right.
We don't have a grocery store. We're not growing our own food and, putting it out there. I mean, anything beauty, definitely, we got that covered.
Right.
But when you start to get into other things,
But even with the beauty, we don't have the supply system. We don't have the
I mean,
supply chain.
I agree. So that's why I was telling you about that black-owned beauty supply store
Right.
right here in Kannapolis. I literally told them, we need you to stay open.
Right.
There's not another one here. I don't know what their system is and how they're working it out, but the owner said we're good right now. And I'll
Right.
let you know. But we need places like that
Right.
across this county.
And I could say a lot of what we're talking about, it starts in the home.
True.
And by it starting in the home, I think I'm open. This Logan thing, it really got my mind spinning. But this is what needs to transpire in every neighborhood. We need to start having meetings about if you go back to, people look at the Black Panther Party as radicals. That was not his initial starting. Its initial starting was governing and creating a chief in the community. Everybody that comes over from another nation, there's somebody that they all go to and they respect. We don't have that in our communities anymore. It's just a bunch of chiefs and no Indians.
Yeah. I don't even know how to fix that situation. I truly just try to be, a good person.
Proactive, right.
I try to be a good person to any and everybody. I try to be resourceful, try to connect people. But the beauty supply, every single beautician, Black beautician, barber, that should be their store.
Right.
That business should never go out of service because go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's too many people in our community that do it. Right.
And there's too many people that need what they have to offer in this community that are servicing our folks.
Right.
So that's just me putting that out there.
I agree.
And I would beg to say, if it ever goes out of business, I would blame us.
Right.
That's our fault. We did that.
Right.
Because the products that's in there is made for us.
It's strange you said that, because I'm one who pick up products and I'm reading the back of it. I'm reading the ingredients. When I go, I'm guilty of it, because if I need something real quick, I'll run up the street instead of waiting on one of my supply people to come in, and I'll grab an item. But I'm looking, and on that shelf, there may be one product that doesn't have alcohol in it.
Oh, Lord.
And alcohol is the enemy to our hair and to our skin.
And I don't know if it's the best thing, but I try when I go in there, and I come all the way from Concord to go over there because I want them to thrive. I want them to be all right in our community. I use Miele products. I don't know if it's got alcohol in it, but I truly try to stay with Black-owned products, Black-made products as best as I can to support my folks.
Right. Right.
But everything on them shelves in the beauty supply store it might not be the best thing for us, but they're making it and selling it because we're buying it.
Right.
So I feel like they're making it for us so that we will spend our money on those products. And
Right.
we do, faithfully.
Thousands of dollars.
Right.
Million. I'm saying, I'm in there and I see people, and I'm like, I didn't even know you could afford $600 for hair.
And then to sit down and go get your hair and pay. We very basic in my house. We try not to spend money and, do all the crazy stuff. And we try to teach our kids that as well. You don't need all of this extravagant stuff just to fit in somewhere.
Right.
As long as you're okay with yourself, that's all that matters. But anyway, my point, my daughter went to prom last month, and I didn't know it cost $300 to get your hair. It was beyond me. I said, we'll do it for this. But it was beyond me that it's $300-$400 just to get your hair. And it was a simple little style, a little pull back right here and a little, weave down. $300.
That's why I told my daughter, you are going to learn how money works before you get that amount of money in your hand. Yeah, that's why. Now, I'm going to say, retrospectively speaking, with education and politics, do you feel like politics should play a role in how communities are getting education?
It doesn't matter how I feel about it. That's what's happening.
Right.
So I usually tell people, if you could give me a situation, I can tell you how it's influenced and how it's driven by politics.
Right.
Politics is in every single thing we do. And if you are not a part of it, you are going to be consumed by it and ate by it.
Right.
So I'm going to answer that question that way. I don't think that politics should control education and what's
Right.
happening in our schools, but that's where we are
Right.
right now. So we've got to understand it and start figuring out how we pull it away from our school. So even if we wanted to open up our own school,
Mm-hmm.
unless we crowdfunding or we getting money from our community and from our people, where's the money coming from?
Right.
So what laws we're going to have to abide by to get that money? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So because that is the case, we've got to be involved in politics, which is why I ran for school board, why I ran for state senate.
Right.
But we don't generally do that, not here in Cabarrus anyway.
Right. I think that's nationwide. And now a lot of people may not be familiar with this book. One of the books they extracted from the Bible, but was subtracted from the Bible. But the book of Maccabees.
Okay.
And I noticed a mistake that Judah Maccabee made and his brother John Hyrcanus made. We are people that was created to receive directly from the Most High.
Mm.
And I think that's why we're on the bottom of a lot of systems, because we're always going to someone else for help other than him. And so, like, I think my perspective is it's time for us to start taking care of us. Because every time we go to our government, they give us crumbs. And since we set foot on the soil, they've been giving us scraps and we've been making the best of it. How long are we going to survive off scraps before we start understanding that our slice of the pie shouldn't be you and our whole ethnicity fighting over one slice? When are we going to, because we're creating the pie, but we're through our spending, through our focus
We're the
on the
reason
wrong
why
thing.
the pie is being created to begin with.
Right, we are
like
the pie.
those things on the shelf, they're there so we can spend our money.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
And I think we talked about this earlier too. Like, we have to understand our power. We don't understand our power
At all.
Really. And so getting peeling back the layers of the onion and like, you really are that dude. We really are those people and that people. And this is where we came from. We have been conditioned to feel like we're supposed to be at the bottom. And we are more concerned about how we look,
right,
than what is actually happening in our systems and in our families.
It's hiding the pain. we spend our money to hide the pain, actually, and
Right.
and now.
And I mean, it doesn't take away. Like,
right.
It doesn't take away the pain. As soon as you get back, it's still there.
It's in the mirror when you look at it. Right.
I mean, this is one of the things that I tell my kids every single day. Like, and one of the other things I do to control, how I am or control myself is I talk to myself. And I'm like, you look good, like, you sexy. Don't let nobody tell you this, or don't do this, whatever have you. I tell my kids, like, people are going to tell you how they feel about you, but you don't have to accept that.
Right.
You don't have to tell yourself that that's what you are, but you do have to develop your own narrative. That's what we have to do as a culture. We have to develop our own narrative and start carrying that out. But what I am concerned and what I continually see happening is that we're not all there.
No, it's mental.
It is very much so. And this goes back to when we were younger, like, don't say nothing. Or, you all right. There's nothing wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've got to get away from, not understanding our value, and then also not taking care of ourselves.
Right.
Like, you can't tell me that I can't go get my nails done every 2 weeks. That's what I do for me.
Right.
And that's what helps to keep me sane. So I'm going to continue to do that.
Right.
And we need to start doing that to other people. No, this is what I need for me. I'm not worried about what you need for you. I'm doing this for me.
Right.
And taking ownership of what we need.
Right.
but I'm not seeing where that's gonna start happening.
Right.
That's my concern.
And one last thing, and I'll go ahead and let you make your closing statement. But educational wise, my great grandmother, I give her credit for the person that I am now. And the reason I give her credit, I give her credit, the person on earth that created and made me the person I am, is because she made education my foundation. I would get in trouble. She would give me, remember the encyclopedias?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
When I got in trouble, that whole summer, I had projects to write and present to her from reading this encyclopedia. And the reason I say that is, like, I'm looking at the education that she gave me, the knowledge that she gave me from the time periods that she lived. She was born in 1903. She heard and saw a lot. And she would tell me, is this one thing that stuck with me is, you can teach a lion to be a mouse.
Mm.
And that registered with me because I have various, I have clients and it's an African client that I had. And, I was asking them questions like, I wanted to know, why do they like coming here so much? And I know it's supposed to be the land of opportunity, but he told me something that I never understood until he said it. He said, people are moving to our country, teaching us our history from their perspective, and they're making it law. So I'm saying that to say this, like, that made me do more research. And through my research, you mean to tell me a man that hunts a lion is going to allow one man to come into your community with a gun and snatch you out? Our history of how we got here has been told to us in a way to where it turns the lion into a mouse. That's why I spoke about it. And so, like, if you were told that a man came in with a gun who didn't look like you, and they snatched you from your land and they threw you on a ship, and then they brought you here and they just dominated you from the beginning, you'll be less likely to resist. So I'm saying, like, I challenge everybody who hears this podcast and every mother and father across the land to re-educate your children, because your children are suppressed by the concept of white supremacy. They didn't beat us and drag us and I'm gonna give you like some history points. Who was with Ponce de Leon when he came? They always had black navigators on those ships. So if I bring you over, I show you this land of opportunity, because when they first came, there wasn't war. When they went back and they came back, that's when they destroyed the people and they took from them. So if I was to get a black navigator who was from that region of the earth, and I take him and I show him this land of opportunity, I present to him, this is a place where we can work. I show him the opportunity, the goal, the people that we can work with alongside of us. And then I take him back, and then I come back by myself and I destroy these people. What is he going to tell people in his community? In America, well, Osarath, that's what it was before they renamed it America. So if I go back and I tell you that there's a land of opportunity, wouldn't you be willing to get on a ship?
Yeah.
And that's how it initially started. Now, once they got here, the tides turned and laws were being implemented. They call them the slave code, started in 1619. Before that, it was the land of opportunity. People was coming here working, and then they passed a series of laws that turned those people into slaves and initially started a slave trade that they're teaching. So
Reminds me of the media and what the media has done.
Right.
They have taught us X, Y, and Z, and we have just went with that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, and I challenge everybody that looks like us to learn your real history and stop letting someone else teach you. As a particular author of every school book that we receive, there's a particular author and owner of every banking system that we have. There's a particular author of every media outlet that we have. And that author has told the story from a victor's standpoint. And I think that author is keeping Jacob where he is.
So the question that I have with all of that
Yes,
is,
ma'am.
how do you change the narrative? How do you change how the story continually ends?
The same way, and I'm gonna tell you, God has led me so much. When I look back from my beginnings, how different things were for me and how I was always treated, and how He established me in business to this day. I've been very affluential in word of mouth. I grew a bit. I'm a stranger in this land. I'm from South Carolina, and all the people who follow me in Barbary are like, no matter where you go, boy, you keep a full room. I never advertised, but it's the word of mouth and the favor of God that has driven me to this point. And what I'm saying is, like, I'm a strong believer in word of mouth. Like, when we get, my wife always tells me, "Oh God, here you go again." When I'm in the company of people, I bring up conversations like this so to change the dynamics of their household. Like, a TV is not gonna tell me how to raise my kids. A law
But it
passes,
does for so many people.
and they don't understand. It's called TV programming for a reason. It's not the selection of shows that you're watching. They're programming you.
I really and truly, like, it seems so massive when you think about how to change
Right.
people or how to change situations. And I always try to figure out what will it take? And I never had the answer to that question.
Right.
Because people believe what they believe. And it's just, how do you change somebody's mind?
But you said something earlier that is, to me, that's the anchor in the change. Keep living your life the way you're living it, and be a living example. That's all. Because
You can do that.
I'm a living witness of, there's people. The only media that I do is this podcast and the Instagram that I have. And I could be probably more successful, but I don't use media because now you got other people's opinions on how you should do stuff. And I don't use media because there's so many people that I subtracted from my life that it's not that I dislike. It's just that my direction and your direction are opposite. And I don't want to drag you along with me because there's more weight, because you really don't want to be there. You're just following for a reason. So a lot of people pay attention to our lives from afar, and everybody's got it. Me and my wife, people sit back and they say, "Oh, where they getting the money from? Where's this coming from?" And because, I wasn't always the person I am now, I can honestly say the only difference between me and those people that are asking all these questions is the favor of God and me understanding a purpose greater than mine. My purpose is not for me to just acclaim success and this and that. He's always giving me more when I give more. So I'm constantly giving myself like Moses did. And a lot of people don't understand. When you read about Moses, there's one significant factor that separates Moses from every man before him. And that was, it said that Moses became grown when he loved and understood his people. And what it was, Moses, raised with the Egyptians, noticed that the Egyptians were mistreating his people. And when you read the book of Jasher, he goes deeper in depth of what was happening, to where the man the Egyptian was in his house with his wife in his presence. And the man began beating the husband of the wife. And that's what made Moses, and when he began to care for his people is when he became grown.
Yeah, one of the things that my husband and I often disagree about is how much of myself I give to the community. And, maybe not saying how much I care for myself as well.
Right.
I think that it is truly important, or it is asked of, maybe it's an unknown ask of leaders to be a product of, I don't know, just kindness and just wholesomeness, and, making sure that you show people how you want them to be showing their community how they should be. You've got to be that living witness.
Right.
But sometimes it can be overwhelming
Right.
Because people, they want to do what they want to do.
Right.
And I mean, that's okay. You're just not there yet. But it is truly hard to continue to walk down this fine line and be the person that you want other people to be as well without even being able to say that. But it's well worth it. And that's where we have to start, as leaders, what we have to start doing.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna say it was a spiritual awakening for me. I noticed the more I treated people the way I wanted to be treated, the more I did things how I wanted my wife to be treated. Like, I would see, and it's not common in society because a lot of people, when you do it, they're wondering like, well, what's your angle?
Yeah.
Like, I recall, like, there was a gentleman walking the other day and it was pouring down raining. And I was like, hey man, you want to ride? And he looked at me like, hey, you sure? I was like, bro, it's pouring down raining. We look alike. I'm not going to do you any harm. Would you like a ride?
Lord. But
And
I
he-
mean, that's that condition though.
Right.
People have been conditioned to assume that if somebody is being nice to you, they want something from that.
Right. And I just told him when he got out, he was like, how much I owe you? I said, man, to go out here and take care of your family.
Mm-hmm.
And he just laughed. But the reason I did that was, if my children or my wife was out and they're struck, I want somebody to do that for them.
Right.
So I believe reap and sow. So if I reap that, and I've seen it, like this one, we was in South Carolina. It was one of my clients that rode by, and we had a Chevy Suburban at the time, and the truck had broke down. Now, if I wasn't the person that I was, he might have waved and went on about his business. This man stopped, took my family home to security, called me and told me what was going on, so that, hey man, I drop your family off, da 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 da. Do you need me to come get you, or you straight out? And that just showed me that, man, what you do will protect and cover your family. So I think if more people knew, your acts of kindness, your acts of, these things protect and show favor to your family as well.
I don't know. There's a new, I think it's called a Compass. So there was a writer for the Independent Tribune. A lot of their staff got cut. So this writer opened his own. He started doing his own thing. And I did an interview with him the other day, and he was like, do you get people to come up to you in the community and tell you, that they appreciate what you do? I'm like, there is not a day that goes by that I don't get a text message. I don't get something on Facebook Messenger. I don't get a call. I don't see somebody in the grocery store that says, thank you for what you're doing in this community. Like, we see you. People see.
Right.
They know who you are. They know what you've been doing, and they appreciate it.
Right.
Now, if that helps somebody to change the tide for what they've been doing, I mean, I feel like I've done what I needed to do. I don't get paid for being out here, like being an advocate. I don't get money for that.
Right.
But it feels great to hear somebody say, like, I appreciate, like, thank you.
Right.
People see you and they know what you're doing. And that, in my opinion, is going to help some little girl, some little boy determine, I'm going to do better.
Right.
I'm going to do this in my community.
If it's only one.
And if it's only one, but when I tell you, honestly, every single day I hear thank you. So people are watching,
Right.
It's helping them to determine, and like, people be like, I didn't know that was happening. We, as a people, have to start getting involved in politics. We have to know how much it determines what we do in our lives. And so I try to put it in layman's terms. Hey, this is what's coming down the pipe. This is how it affects me. I don't know how it affects you. Even with, this county commission and how they're spending money and how that increases our taxes. Like, I mean, things like that impact our daily lives. And we have to pay attention to it.
And we don't pay attention to it till we get that bill that where your mortgage is going up
and that's,
$200.
I paid attention to it. I mean, and I've been saying this a lot. Like, we have an insurance commissioner. One person determines how much insurance companies get to charge us. One man. We got 7 people on the school board that's making decisions. Why is one person able to tell us how much we're going to be paying in insurance every year? But because of that, my insurance, my mortgage has gone up to $300 a month. That's one person determines that.
Too much power.
Right. But if you don't understand that, you're not going to be paying attention to who's on the ballot, who you voting for. We probably ain't even going out to vote because we don't think it's important.
Right.
Politics plays so much of a role in everything we do. I mean, we've been talking about that today,
Right.
but like it plays that big of a role. But I think to your point earlier, people are paying attention. And I think, that causes them to evaluate what they're doing. And it may or may not cause them to change the course of action that they were going to take.
Right.
It may or may not keep them out of trouble. It may or may not make them a better person just because you gave that ride.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
that would be my last sentiments. I mean, get more involved in politics. Don't be scared of it. I didn't know anything about it before I started getting involved. I still don't know everything. I know how to do research about it. And I also know how to point people in the right direction based off of what their concern is. Stay involved in what's happening in your local politics, school board of commission. Every town in Cabarrus has a town council, city council. Start going to those meetings, getting involved. They have committees that they develop. Like the board of commission, they have, they're on the committee for the Department of Health and Human Services. There's various committees that they develop that we in the community can apply for and be a part of. That helps you to be ingrained in what's happening within this community.
Right.
Those would be my last words. Get involved.
Anything you want to advertise? Anything you wanted to advocate?
We have Brielle's Beauty Supply here in Kannapolis, North Carolina. It is a Black-owned beauty supply. It is the only one in our county. I want to highlight them. I also want to highlight, that our kids and, folks of color are not represented on these boards of commission, board of education, very minimally represented on our city councils. Run for office. If you don't know how to do that, I'm willing, for you to reach out to me and ask me, and I'll point you in the right direction.
You have a Facebook, Instagram, anything you want to
I have
advocate?
a phone number that I will give somebody, 980-434-1255. Call me, text me. I'm on Facebook, Keshia Sandidge. I do a lot of live videos just to kind of talk through. I wanted to point a different picture of the Black family. So when my son was being recruited, people were asking me all kind of questions about, what that's like. So I go live probably every other day to just kind of let people into our life to see what we do and to show that, not all Black people is crazy. Not all Black people, curse all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? We got some good folks, Right. So I talk a lot about, policy as well, like laws that are impacting our communities. I talked about the Department of Education, what the school board may have on their agenda for this week or this month or whatever have you. So I do a lot of informational stuff so that I can get our people involved in politics.
Well, I definitely enjoyed speaking with you, and hopefully we can do it again and finish up the questions because the conversation was so interesting with the questions.
Yeah, we went totally left from the Department of Education, but we talked about it, though.
Right, but we talked about the education and how it impacts the community. And really, we talked about our community in summer. And I just appreciate your time, and we thank you.
Absolutely.
And I like to say to my partner, get well, because he could have added some more things in with it.
Yeah, I definitely gotta come back when he's here.
Right. And so Errol Rucker, get well. And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your local barbershop is a place to go for a nice haircut, shape up, or just a little off the top, traditionally speaking. Rice and Ruck, master barbers at Klippah Talk, have combined their interest in hair design, community events, and social awareness to bring you more than just a traditional barbershop experience. Come enjoy a welcoming family atmosphere where no one is a stranger. A place to collectively discuss issues that affect our lives and that affect our community. And a place you can get a really nice cut. But don't take our word for it. Come see for yourself. You'll find that we're more than just a barbershop. Come experience the difference at Klippah Talk.